Welcome to Cybersecurity Refined and Feral, where refinement meets chaos in the digital world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cybersecurity Refined and Feral. I'm Candy, and as always, I'm joined by my daughter and co-host, Kaylin.
Hey, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that a lot of practitioners tend to shy away from because it feels, one, personally, it feels awkward, and two, it might feel marketing heavy to other people, but in actual reality, it's probably one of the most important tools in a security professional's arsenal, which is personal branding.
Exactly. And in a field built on zero trust, how do you actually build enough trust to get the job done? Influence stakeholders and grow your career at the same time. To help us break this down, we have a guest who has quite literally written a playbook on this. He's the founder of Simply Cyber Ecosystem, a Red Hat certified architect, and the man who has helped thousands of pros plant their flag in the industry. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Gerald Auger. Jerry?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation today and hopefully help people be able to actionalize their own personal branding.
Yeah. So we've watched you build Simply Cyber into a massive community. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about the how. Let's talk about the why. So you often say that personal branding isn't about becoming a celebrity. It's about a verifiable track record. What is the distinction and why is it so critical?
Yeah, so I mean, just to kind of like define a couple key terms so we're all speaking the same language. You know, when we say personal branding, to me, it is an element of that represents you online in some capacity. So if you are known for OSINT, then like, you know, if someone were to be like, oh, like I need someone who does OSINT, and like you're one of the people that comes to mind, that is personal branding. If you like, I have, you know, if you're watching the video, like I have blue and red lights, I kind of have like a retro synthwave vibe. Like it's something that I enjoy and I immerse myself in it all the time because I want to like working. So if you see like, you know, hot pink and blues and retro wave vibes on a video as you're scrolling, chances are it's me. And that's another form of personal branding. Now, you said, you know, it does get kind of a bad connotation of like, oh, like you're just trying to like get in front of people and either fake it till you make it or sell something or just kind of be salesy. And honestly, a lot of, you know, viral content and marketing and stuff like that. It really is around marketing and sales. And it's usually looking more polished and it's looking more finished. People talk about Super Bowl commercials, like every one of those commercials, despite the fact that you're like John about it on Monday at work, they're all trying to sell you on something or adjust your perceptions of what their product is or how it can help you better yourself. So when we talk about personal branding, being able to, like the celebrity part, I suppose, comes with it, and you can't really influence that one way or the other. You can recognize it and acknowledge it and point out that that's not what you're doing. Actions speak louder than words. So I mean, if you're constantly angling for like, oh, I'm the foremost expert on personal branding, or oh, I have the biggest community, or what, like if you're making these kind of like extreme absolute statements, then maybe that's what you're going for. But like if you have 1 million subs, 2 million subs, like John Hammond is a great example. John Hammond, everybody knows John Hammond. He's recognizable. His hair is red. He doesn't really go out of his way to be, you know, any kind of special look, but he's so consistent and he's so humble and he's so well done that people recognize him all the time at conferences and he can't get away from it. I would argue celebrity is not really what you want, right? I mean, you want to be known for being able to do something productive or something value add to an organization. Not that I've seen your face on a billboard or on doom scrolling and stuff like that. So put the celebrity part aside. You can't really get around it, but you can manage it. And I feel like personally, I have managed it just by, you know, being humble and setting expectations that I'm here to help, I'm here to serve. I'm not here for me, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Now, as far as why would I do this? Why would I put this effort in, right? Yeah, of course. I shouldn't say of course. I started this without the intent of building it into what it became. I personally am into education. I love learning, and I love cybersecurity. Like it's truly a passion. I love talking about it. I love learning. I have multiple degrees around cybersecurity. I love working in cybersecurity. I love helping people. I love all educating people in cybersecurity. So that's one dimension of me. But then another dimension of me is I love service, and I love helping other people achieve their potential and be successful, because I get my cup filled, to use kind of a Gen Z phrase. I get my flowers or whatever by seeing someone else succeed, and knowing that I was, somewhat contributing to that success, and knowing that, like, okay, I'm not going to say like, oh, I was the reason you did that, but I will say to myself, like, oh man, like what I told them was right. And like, I'm legit. And like, it validates me that what I'm saying, and I know it's true. When it's actualized, it will be true. So that really does, that's my why. That's why I drive. I do a morning show, as Candy mentioned in the intro. Today was episode 1110. So, I mean, it's been going on for years. And I told my audience today, like, if you guys didn't show up, I wouldn't be doing this. This is a symbiotic relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You hit on a couple of things that I want to pull on a little deeper. So, the whole celebrity versus brand, right? Because I look at a lot of colleagues in the profession, and I think we get confused by that, to be quite simple. So I want to break that down a moment. We believe that the more LinkedIn, followers I get, the better opportunity I have for employment down the road. But I think, if I could rephrase it, your point that there's a difference between being recognized at a conference by your peers versus being somebody who has a good brand, or being known for being, really focused and the best in, like, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I think so. How, with that in mind, how do people get off track from that? Or where's the misconception? Because I've fallen into that. I've been in the profession for a long time. I've had a lot of former bosses say, I can always count on you, but it's not always recognized with everybody within the organization or future employers. So where do we go wrong there? Do you have any opinions?
Yeah, so it's 100% around, I guess, your sphere of influence. Okay, again, I don't like the term influencer. My friends joke with me that I'm an influencer. I've had a friend, Kathy Chambers, actually say that, like, influencer doesn't have to be a dirty word, because you can positively influence people.
Yes.
So I do take that. But what you're talking about, Candy, is influence and sphere of influence.
Yes.
The reality that, like, kind of a step back, like an axiomatic macro level reality, at least in the United States where I operate, is that we do not live in a meritocracy. You could be the absolute best person at SOC engineering. You could write the best detections ever, and your boss heaps praises on you every day, and you get laid off or whatever, the business goes under, and you go somewhere else, and all of that capital that you've established as being the best means nothing anywhere else in the market. And that's really where people get wrong, because they get praise, or they feel a sense of job well done and accomplishment in their efforts, and they kind of chill on that, thinking that they are kind of going to drive their own boat the way they want. And unfortunately, we don't live in a meritocracy, and what ends up happening is, if you need to move within market or move internally, you are now binding yourself to, like, what your boss's opinion of you is. Maybe your boss has another agenda. Maybe your boss retires or goes to another job and gets replaced by somebody who doesn't know anything about you.
Right.
So by limiting your sphere of influence, and in the example you've given, you are greatly reducing your opportunities within market. So what I always like to tell people, so let's correct this, right? Like that, we've identified it's a problem. Let's fix it, right?
Yes.
So what I always tell people is think of yourself as the CEO of you, and you want to be the person people think of when they have a problem, right? So when you, if you, let's say you're, again, the best detection engineer ever, right? Well, then it's great that your boss thinks you're great, but maybe you should start going to conferences and speaking about detection engineering, right? This will associate you with detection engineering. And if you're awesome, which you are, the person in the audience listening to you is going to be like, this is a thought leader. This is somebody who understands detection engineering. I want more of this person. And then you start building that network. Now you go on social media. Sure, you can post about, whatever, your vacation or your dog, or you can do all those things or whatever, like 10 things you learned about business, whatever. But you know what would be beneficial? If you start focusing on detection engineering, you can have a couple different, they're called like pillars, or these like verticals of like content you speak about, but one of them should be detection engineering. Again, insert detection, like change the variable to whatever it is you want to be known for.
Right.
But put it in and then start commenting and contributing to that. You'll start to be known. And the one thing that I tell people too is this is very much a long game. There's no amount of shortcutting this. You can't, like, even if you bought followers and bought subs and all that other stuff, it's not going to work, because when you post a video or LinkedIn post and you get zero engagement because you have zero real people who are actually aware of you and interested in you, it's going to basically call you out as a fraud, because you're going to have 100,000 subs and zero activity on your account. So you have to invest now. And another thing I tell people is, like, think about what you want to be known for. Think about what you're good at. Think about what you're passionate about, because you're going to have to be contributing and putting in, because you don't need it now. But if you were to get laid off, your boss goes somewhere else and gets replaced, whatever it is, and you need to enter market, you want to already be established as a sick detection engineer. So when you don't even apply to jobs, like when you do it right, you don't even apply to jobs. You just tell people you're available, and people who have detection engineer needs will contact you. I'll tell a true story. Okay. Now listen, I have a PhD in cyber operations, right? And I'm very proud of it, right? I worked wicked hard for it. But I'm not saying that to flex. I'm saying it because it's important for the point I'm about to make. I got this degree. I didn't get a pay raise. I didn't get a new job title. And when I wanted to leave the company I was at when I got that PhD, I still had to fight in tooth and nail and claw. And there was jobs I didn't get, right? So it's not like, oh, easy for you to say, Mr. PhD. No, I still had to fight and claw. Now, I start Simply Cyber. I build it up. I got a phone call from a guy, and it was the weirdest thing. So I get a phone call from a guy, and he's like, hey, I'm this private equity managing partner. I'm a CIO over like 15 different manufacturing firms. We have one that has the need for a CISO. Like, here is like what is available for resources. Here's what we would want. Here's all these things, like just painting this gorgeous picture. And like, he's like, so what do you think? And again, I didn't even know what I was getting into on this phone call. It was like bizarre to get this invite for a phone call with this guy. And I'm like, are we talking about a job right now? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, do you want to see my resume? Like, I've never done this inverted format. And he's like, no. Oh, he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, this must be your first time. I'm like, I guess. Yeah. What are we doing? And he's like, I know exactly who you are. I know exactly what you can do. Yes. And I need someone to build and fix one of my manufacturing plants. And I'm willing to do what it takes to get you to say yes before we hang up on this phone call. So I was able to negotiate like a ridiculous salary. I wasn't working 40 hours a week. Like, I worked from home, like the only employee doing it, like all sorts of things. So again, I can't promise everybody the same, but what I will say is, if you hoe a garden and then you plant a bunch of seeds and then you water it, I promise you some of them will grow. Not all of them, but some of them will grow, and you just have to put the effort in.
So that speaks a lot to the why, right? And not just be an influence, or not just be, the top cyber person on LinkedIn, or pick whatever platform. It's really getting to be known for your authentic self. And I know a lot of people actually that have gone for their degrees, and it really it's beneficial. However, we are seeing, and Kayla and I have done a couple of episodes on this, we're seeing a change and shift in the employment and hiring processes. Long gone are the days of applying for a job. Those don't happen anymore. I personally think they're data scraping, and then they are now becoming more and more common, as you described, where if you are known for your specialty, you're being a hired gun, people are on the lookout all over the place for those rising stars, if you will. So I think that was a really articulate example of why this is important and how it's important to be a knowledge expert as opposed to an influencer. And I agree, influencer is not a bad title. It's just when we think of influencers, we think of, TikTok and, doing stupid stuff with Tide Pods.
Like more entertainment influencers versus education influencers.
Yes. Yeah. Really good points. Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. I think, again, another thing you talked about as well, and I've heard from several other speakers about branding and personal brand, is being your authentic self. But I'm going to bring up another point about the profession that I've observed over my long term here, and that is we are very competitive with each other. And I know I've been to a lot of conferences. I even in the professional association I belong to, ISSA, you're really afraid to say I don't know, or admit something that you're not good at because of the climate that we have in our profession. So how do you overcome that being authentic? When I think of authenticity, the one individual that is more authentic that I've seen anywhere is Ira Winkler. And he is like so brutally authentic. So how do you go from being the shy wallflower and being afraid to say, I don't know, or I don't want people to think I'm not good at something because I ask a question? And maybe this comes back to the imposter syndrome. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with this. So in our industry, for sure, imposter syndrome is something that everybody deals with. And one thing, I mean, so I've been in industry for 22 years, and it took me a long time to get through it. I mean, I came up and made mistakes the same as everybody else, which is why I love mentoring backwards, because I wish someone had told me 3 years in. But one thing is, like, our industry, like whoever's listening this, if you're just a couple years in or you're about to break in, like our industry is so massive. Literally nobody is an expert in everything. Nobody. So immediately know that even whoever you think of is like the best at something, they're not, right? Like me, like I've got all these degrees and 22 years of education, all this stuff. Like I can't hack into like a bank,
Right.
like you don't want me hacking on anything. I stink at pen testing. I can do labs and CTFs and fun little things, but like, dude, you're not going to want me there. Right. And I'm wholly admitting that. I think being comfortable with being uncomfortable is the first step, and just realize that you have value that is, different than other people, and you have gaps and opportunities to develop professionally that others don't. And honestly, two things. One, with admitting that there's something you don't know or asking for support or help, you're actually doing something quite interesting. There has been studies shown that, and again, this gets into psychological behavior, and I will stand by this, and I'll pull the research if you need me to. But if you give someone something, there's this idea of the law of reciprocity and everything like that. And that's true. If I give you something, there's a certain level of trust established. It's unconventional and it surprises a lot of people. But if I ask you for something and you give it to me, there's a higher bond of trust actually established. And it's interesting. So, and I'm not saying you're playing mind games and starting to like hypnotize people, but my point is asking for help actually opens yourself up to being vulnerable, which is a real human trait that you're, giving to this other person who then has an opportunity to respond by helping you or not helping you, or saying, I can't help you either because I don't know. Let's find it out together. Right. And I'll just tell you, if someone's a jerk, if someone's like, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't know that. Guess what? Move on to the next person, because there's a lot of us in the industry that are awesome, and that person doesn't need to be in your circle or sphere. Right. All right. So that's what I would say about that.
I think one of my favorite things to do is to say like, oh, I messed up, or like, I don't know. I think that can also stem from the need and want to always be learning. Like, I am so excited to learn something new that I have no qualms of being like, I don't know what that means. Because that's like a chance to learn about what it does mean. And I think maybe that also might have something to do with the fact that people feel like they can't ask questions or say that they don't know, is because they're not comfortable with their own knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that, like if it's like, what's that acronym mean, right? Like that you can't really help that. But, if you're like, hey, I'm trying to write this detection, or I'm trying to review this policy, or I'm trying to see if MFA is configured in this environment, can you help me? Like, I would assume that the person has made some effort already. If they're like, hey, I haven't, my boss told me to do this, can you do it for me? That's not going to fly really. But if they're like, hey, like I looked on Google, I looked on this website, like I'm getting conflicting messages, can you help me understand why is red teaming different than pen testing? I don't get it. Like I'm super pumped to help in that case. And a lot of people will be, because like you've shown some initiative and you're hungry to learn. And honestly, this is kind of a contentious hot take. Anyone can work in cybersecurity. I think people that are lifelong learners tend to be more successful in cybersecurity, because it just changes so much and there's so much to learn that if you're not into constant development, it can be overwhelming.
Right. I know a lot of times I'll be at different events and groups, where something new is being presented or whatever. And, I've learned that I'm usually the first person to ask that, what I think is silly question, and next thing you know, other people are raising their hands and everything else. So I think we need to, as you said, so what if you ask a question and the response is like, oh, you're an idiot, then that's not your tribe. That's not where you belong. Move on. Or I've found more times than not that cybersecurity people, you kidding me? We love to talk about what we know. So if you ask a question, that's it. I'll talk all day about, what that answer is. So I think that also helps that bonding of, mentee and mentor type of relationship as well. So that's a good point. So I want to back up a moment. So I think I appreciate very much you saying that you need to find your niche or your specialty, and maybe not just focus on one, maybe, 2 or 3 to back up, right? But how does somebody like me, who is a generalist, and or shall I say, and I'm sorry I say it this way, but a GRC person, because let's face it.
Whoa. Don't apologize for that. Come on. We are GRC strong. Come on, Kat.
Yeah, right? So, but you get those other tech people, like the AppSec people and whatever, and they don't appreciate it. So like, how do you focus in and become a generalist and find your persona? What is your recommendation for finding your niche when you're considered, or you consider yourself a generalist?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue to kind of think about your experience level for a few minutes, really kind of self-reflect. If you identify as a generalist, right? I bet, unless I feel like generalists are like 0 to 3 years in career, And then, so I believe that's the standard in general. 0 to 3, you're general because you're trying to figure it out. You're like an apprentice, basically. Then 3 to 5, you're getting very hands-on skills and you're becoming quite competent at work independent. And then from 5 to 10, you, whatever that niche is that you did 3 to 5, you are zeroing in and going deep on something. So Candy, you had mentioned earlier, again, I'm not making any assumptions here, but you mentioned earlier having a long-term career. So I'm going to assume that that's more than 7 years. And you say you're a generalist, but you mentioned GRC. Have you worked with NIST cybersecurity framework, Candy?
Absolutely.
Okay, so based on how strong that was, I bet you're quite familiar with 853, 837, NIST CSF, and how it went from 1.1.1 to 2, and what those changes were, how the response and recovery dimensions actually got fleshed out in 2.0. I bet you know all that. So you're not really a generalist. You're actually quite specialized in understanding not just NIST cybersecurity framework, but how to really implement it to realize risk reduction in a maturable way over, a long period of time, 1 to 3 years of experience. So right there, you're a generalist, but you know what? If I'm that manufacturing person and I need to go, they were greenfield, they had nothing. Like they need to implement a program. They have budget, but they don't know what's the first thing we do. What do we do in 6 months? Like, what's a stupid thing to invest in? I bet you, Candy, you would be a perfect person to know, to ask those questions and potentially bring on to execute that work. So just as a quick workshop use case study, just use Candy to demonstrate how you can self-reflect and identify those things. And I also want to point out to the listeners, I asked her about NIST CSF and she said, absolutely. Now, there's passion in there, right? If I said, have you done ISO 27001? She's like, oh, yeah. Like, guess what? That's not what you want to be personal branding on. That's not what you want to be known for, because the last thing you want to do is get, bound to something that you dislike, because the shine's going to wear off soon and you're not going to want to be known for it. So do the self-reflection exercise. No one, even if you're married or whatever, no one knows you better than you and knows what you're excited about, what you're good at, where you want to take your direction. Because this doesn't have to be for 20 plus years senior veterans, right? You can be 2 years into industry and have a brand, because there's a lot of people who are looking at the 2 years in and wanting to know how they did that. Where are they going? Are you Gen Alpha? And like, how are you using AI? Because a lot of times, another thing about personal branding is like people want to see themselves as well. And this gets into diversity, right? So like I'm a white male, right? So like, if a woman were to see me, like she would probably get some value from my content because I try to make it accessible. But if she saw Candy presenting the same content, she might identify and say, oh, like, yeah, like this is my tribe. These are my people. So there's value for there. So don't think that exercise is for senior people only.
No, I love that. Absolutely love that. And you spoke a lot about, time in the profession, if you will, like, 1 to 3 is, entry. And it's really ironic because when I was on the ISSA International Board of Directors, I was actually the lead architect for the cybersecurity career lifecycle. And that's exactly the timeframes that we looked at. Like entry level is 1 to 3 years. From 3 to 5, you kind of have an idea of where you want to go, but you're, still at the beginning stages. And then from 5 to 7, you're more advanced. So I just, that's why I was laughing, is because it's pretty dead on to what the cybersecurity career life cycle
I was unaware of that research, but it's, just, I've been around, like the block isn't big and I've gone around it many, many times.
I get it. So we talked a lot about the importance of your personal brand, what it is exactly, and how it can help you if you should need to find a new role, a new position. So in other words, outward, branding, if you will. But let's take that same concept, because again, I've seen a lot of colleagues, and I've even fallen prey to this myself, is like, I often speak at conferences. I'm really, appreciated by my colleagues and so on and so forth. But, I go back to the office I'm always struggling with, debating with the CIO on like why we should do two-factor authentication or silly things like that that are like no-brainers, but I have no skills to influence. And this is where that influencer title is a good thing. How do I take all that I am out in the world and now pull it in and leverage that to be really good at my job?
Yeah. Now this is a great question, and it is an opportunity to level yourself up as an individual contributor as well as improve your overall cybersecurity program. I do want to preface this by telling the audience that I spent the bulk of my career in GRC. I did do Blue for a minute because, when you're a small organization, like someone's got to go into the phishing quarantines and stuff. But so this is from the GRC perspective. I'm not 100% sure how you might do this. I'd have to think about it for SOC analysts and pen testers. But for anyone that's working, this is how you would do it to build influence. Number one, with the CIO, like you almost need to come at it sideways to build that influence, not directly, because the CIO is going to see you as a subordinate and just shut you down, right? So what I would say is this is what I have done in my career. And again, I didn't do it for celebrity, okay? So number one is if we think about interfacing with the business, which is all the humans in the organization, how do we communicate to them? Now, when we think about communicating to them, it's different than communicating to the executives, and it's different than communicating to IT. So first of all, you've got to realize that the words you use and the language you use and the cadence and the length and all these other things in using graphics versus not, like it really does matter. And a lot of times people will think like, oh, like basically this is something that's just very human, but like, yeah, you've got something to say, but like people aren't going to come to you to listen to it. And if you think you're going to meet them halfway, like the CIO, like again, this is proverbially, but like the CIO is going to leave their office and meet you in the hallway halfway down from your office. No, like you have to go to where people are. You have to eliminate all the friction that you possibly can in order to get them to consume whatever your message is. I also want to point out that the message should be, I like bite size, and this is taking a tip from like social media, but bite size and frequent. So what I have done in the past, for example, is I do this all the time. In fact, if you sign up for my newsletter, which costs nothing, I literally send you every Monday 3 things that one you can send to your executives, one you can send to IT, and one you can send to your end user workforce if you just want to hit the cheat code button and use my work. But I like to send one thing that matters to the end users. So like say it's multi-factor authentication, right? Okay, let's say that like Gmail's got a hack or somebody got their, retirement account hacked or their bank account hacked or whatever, right? Put that in a little message and send it out Monday. Hey, note from the InfoSec office or note from the cyber office, right? This is, by the way, you got to get approval from management, but they're going to approve it, right? And you send it every Monday. Okay. And this Monday, it's like, hey, quick note, like this group out of wherever, like this Russian threat actor robbed someone's retirement account. If you don't want this to happen to you, look for multi-factor authentication on your bank account. It'll be called 2-factor, multi-factor, tri-factor, whatever, and enable it. It can be a text message, a rotating token, etc. Like for you. Okay. Now here's a couple things. If you want to take it to the next level, I actually use a tool called Loom, Loom, not a sponsor, but I use Loom. And effectively what it does is it allows you to very quickly share your screen and your camera, and you can film yourself making like a little PSA. It's a very, very quick way to make a little video that does what I just said. So now here's a little brief email with something that's interesting, because it's Monday morning. You're not looking to get started with work. You're looking for interesting stuff to do. That still works. So if your boss walks up, you're like, oh, I'm reading the note from Jerry, right? But then there's a video. It's interesting. My face is there, so you're seeing me. And I'm not telling you to put MFA on to protect this business. I'm telling you to protect your own money. If I can modify your own behavior because you're incentivized to protect yourself, you're naturally going to bring that to the company. And now every Monday, you're excited for my email. And when you accidentally do something that you shouldn't or whatever, you already know my tone, my demeanor, what I look like. I've already established almost like a parasocial relationship with you. Mm-hmm. So in my history, I'll get calls from people I've never spoke to before. And they'll be like, hey, Jerry. I'm like, hey, who are you? And they're like, oh, I work in the loading docks. Like, dude, this weird thing happened. Like, is this a thing? And I'm like, oh, okay, like, no problem. Like, never shame someone, never do any of that. But like, again, to bring this back to your original question, Candy, by being constant, by showing up, by delivering value, by putting my face there, by making myself accessible and not asking for anything, I'm just helping you, then I'm building influence. So then the CIO is getting the same message. The CIO wants MFA on their stuff too. The CIO needs these things. Oh, like, hey, can we please patch the ERP system? There's a massive breach. Well, the maintenance window is only big enough for the feature pack we're going to put in. That's fine. But I'm just, this is actively being exploited in the wild right now. So we could have a problem on our hands. Like, what's our cyber insurance look like? Whoa. What are we talking about here? Well, so you can begin to develop this expertise and this reliable asset to the organization that is a human, but it's going to be seen as a capability, and you're just going to be the human behind it. And then, rinse and repeat. And again, one other thing, and then I'll go. And I apologize to the audience if you're listening on 2x speed because I'm just talking. But like, I just have so much I want to share. Another like pro move. I love this one. You're sending that email to everybody in the business, right? So I would say like 20 to 30% are like, I don't read these generic emails that mean nothing to me. Okay, that's fine. When you make it specialized, so every department has team meetings. You yourself listening to this podcast, you're probably dreading that you have a team meeting in 15 minutes, right? So because there's a finance department, a marketing department, a sales department, an engineering department, all the departments, right? They all have weekly or monthly meetings. If you go to the head of that meeting or, whoever owns the meeting and you're like, hey, can I just come to your meeting for the first 5 minutes and then leave? It's literally low stakes. Like, I'm not going to be eavesdropping on them. I'm not some type of spy. I'm not going to be doing anything. It makes their meeting even easier because you've added an agenda item and people feel like they have to fill the entire hour. So like you're hooking them up and then you can come in. You're different than what they see every week or every month. So immediately this is better than our weekly meeting. And then you just give them something that's like specific to the finance, right? CFO. Let's talk about business email compromise. A South Korean company got taken for $25 million from deep fakes. It literally looked like the CEO. Can you imagine, like, point to the CFO? Can you imagine if this person called you on a Zoom and asked you to transfer money? Would you do it? Probably, right? Let's not have that happen. Here's how you protect yourself. If you got any questions, just ping me on email or whatever. So it's very tailored. I wouldn't send a business email compromise out to the entire workforce because guess what? Carl in the marketing department doesn't care about that. So those are kind of two ways to build influence. And you may have noticed there's a trend. There's a lot of me being in the space, delivering it, being seen as the person who is the white knight, the one who's bringing this value and helping protect the organization.
So I think I'll just say, the common denominator, whether it's brand internally or externally, is consistency, being consistently out there and staying true to your message, whether it's helpful, but ultimately comes down to you're a solution provider. You're providing solutions to, those challenges, whether it's internal or external. So I think that's this has been great. This really has been.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. And I will tell you, this is something I've been saying a lot. I almost want to make a shirt of it, but it doesn't really align with my personal values because it almost seems mean. But just be real with yourself, listener. Ideas are easy. I can give you a dozen ideas right now. Ideas are easy. Execution is hard. So before you come up with some grand idea that sounds awesome, be sure that you can execute on it because as Candy pointed out, I'm telling you, consistency is very difficult. I've seen a lot of people splash, right? Oh, I got all these ideas. They make a ton of content and 2 weeks later, they're done. And you've never see them again. And it's Well, that was honestly a waste of 2 weeks unless you learn something from that experience. You've got to be consistent. So set, like I said, my email to the business was once a week, and it took me about 45 seconds to make the little video. And if you use my newsletter, it'll take you 15 seconds because you just got to read what I write. So make sure you can support whatever it is that your idea is. Start small, build on top of it, get those wins. And one other thing to share with you and share with everybody, don't measure your success on comparing yourselves to others. And I would argue, don't measure your success at all, and eventually occasionally take stock of what you've accomplished. But for the most part, if you're trying to reach some goal or measure yourself in some way and you're not getting it, you're going to get discouraged and you're going to lose sight of what you're actually trying to accomplish versus some manufactured objective line in the sand, or subjective line in the sand, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Jerry, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I feel like we could talk for hours about this kinds of stuff. For our listeners, we will link Jerry's YouTube channel in our description. Just give us a thumbs up. Let us know what the biggest takeaway was for you personally. And don't forget to subscribe to our LinkedIn, our YouTube, and I think we're good.
Yeah. So again, I absolutely second everything Caitlin said and then some. Really been a pleasure. I'd love to have you back sometime. This has been a lot of fun chatting with you. Definitely, we're in the same tribe here. The three of us are all shaking our head yes with everything everybody's saying. So that is it for today. Until next time, stay secure, stay refined.
And don't be afraid to get a little bit feral